It's about the I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Gets the ball, gets back, pulls up for the win. Got it! Detroit basketball. Holloman looks the clock, half court for the win. Oh! The Lions go for it. The Vikings bring it in. The pass is a touchdown to give.
Javi Baez, homered earlier. First one, in the air, deep left field, again! Yes, Tigers win! Javi is unstoppable!
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. Welcome one, welcome all. Another great episode of BS Sports. Everybody very happy right now, right? Right? Nothing to be angry about, right? We all had a great weekend. No, nothing to be angry about. Isn't that right? No. So, it's been a little bit of a rougher weekend for Lions fans, and we'll get into it because I'm generally speaking not the kind of fan who in the middle of the season is apoplectic and cannot be just screaming and yelling about how terrible the team is or what. I'm usually not in that mindset. And I try to maintain that. But some of you people, if you go on the Detroit Lions subreddit, which I do not usually recommend after a loss, some people are irredeemably both overly positive and overly negative. Here's my thing, and we'll get into it in just a moment, but we all know that the reality is somewhere in the middle between these two, right? We all know that it is not as simple as John Morton needs to be fired or Brad Holmes is the greatest general manager ever. It's not that simple. We all know this. So we'll get into that. We also get into all of the Week 9 stuff in the NFL, the trade deadline. So let's just do that. Let's just jump into this Lions game and then into a bigger discussion around the trade deadline or the lack thereof if you're a Lions fan. So this past Sunday, say it like it is, Lions got embarrassed. They got embarrassed. They got pantsed in front of their family, friends, God, and everybody. They got their culo exposed to the girl they like on TV. It's not fun. It's unenjoyable. But the fact is, this happens in the NFL. It happens every single year. I want you to go back and look at every single team that's ever won a championship, ever. And I'll find you a loss that they got completely embarrassed in. That's not to say that excuses the embarrassment, but it is to say it's a part of, especially an NFL season, to lose games in embarrassing fashion. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when the Chiefs lost to the Vegas Raiders on Christmas, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. Do people remember this? I remember this. That was probably about as bad of a loss as you can get on Christmas, of all holidays, on the happiest day of the year. Anyway, let's get into the good first. So the defense, I think, played pretty well. And I know the 27 points, you think, oh my gosh, 27 points, that's not great. You got to think of it this way. Minnesota is basically starting in positive territory every couple of possessions. Throughout the game, I mean, they scored the 2 touchdowns at the beginning in the first quarter. They didn't score any more touchdowns until the third quarter, and that was it. They scored just 1 touchdown that whole second half. You know, J.J. McCarthy was held to less than 150 yards, had an interception. You know, he was comfortable for a time and then couldn't really move the football. If they didn't get good field position, couldn't really do much. Aaron Jones, he was running all over you, then he gets hurt. So, you know, you take that what you will. And Justin Jefferson really didn't get to feast. Jordan Addison was their leading receiver. Let me see exactly how many yards Jefferson had. Just 47 yards, so a little off on there, but he really didn't feast on you. It was like overall, I was fine with the defensive performance. I would have liked to see Aiden Hutchinson feast a little bit more on his old teammate, but it is what it is. He still got a sack at least. Now, as far as the bad, there's a lot to talk about, unfortunately. So the bad is that overall, just say it like it is, the offense just straight up played poorly. Now, there's a few reasons for this. Number one, and I think the thing that people are just either not talking about enough or just overlooking entirely, they couldn't run the football. They couldn't. Your leading rusher had 40 yards on 11 carries. Jahmyr Gibbs was completely taken out of the game. You can't run the football, it's going to be a really hard way to win a football game. It really is. And once the run game was eliminated, your offense becomes pretty one-dimensional, literally, because you're throwing the ball most of the time. Jared Goff threw the ball almost 40 times. That's usually not a winning strategy. Last time I can remember him throwing that much was against the Texans, and they barely won that game last year. So they got rid of the run game. And the other major concern was, of course, the offensive line, because obviously, I already talked about they couldn't run the ball, but Jared Goff was getting pressured like crazy. And usually he does pretty well in these spots. He's one of the better quarterbacks against the blitz. Unfortunately, wasn't having a good day. And guys are allowed to have bad days. And even on his bad day, he still threw for 284 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So I know that's not, his QBR was pretty low. And it was not a great day for Jared Goff. He threw 12 incompletions. So you have to consider that when evaluating the day. But again, didn't have a whole lot of protection. Didn't have a whole lot of time to get his reads in. I mean, it was like he'd have like half a second and then a guy is, on his neck. It's not much you can do there. Now, the main thought that people have, and I don't blame them for having this thought, is the old offensive coordinator, John Morton. Now, John Morton, he had some play calls, and you can go back and listen to my live reaction, and you hear me exactly when it's happening. He had some play calls that I just flat out, fundamentally, in principle, disagree with. What I do not like to see are screen passes on 3rd down and 10 or 3rd down and 5 or when I'm in a 3rd down spot and I'm choosing to throw the football, unless I'm throwing off an expected blitz, right? And I'm going to get a screen pass out to Gibbs or Montgomery and have space or Jameson, whatever the case might be. I'm not throwing a screen pass. I'm just not going to do it. And I am not in the mode to support that kind of a play call. However, it is pretty hard to establish your offense when your quarterback is getting destroyed within half a second of snapping the football. Two things can be true at once. Morton did not call a very good game. And also, the offensive line struggled, made it very hard to call a good game for any offensive coordinator. Now, here's the thing. All of this in tandem, I think, comes down to this problem that I think many fans in general, not just Lions fans, but in general, especially in the internet age, have struggled with, which is that we have lost the ability to understand what it is like to lose sometimes. Last year was an anomaly in many ways. Going 15-2 was one of the great experiences of my life because it meant that for pretty much the entire season, I was stress-free, and that all immediately came crashing down in the divisional round. The reality is, in the NFL, you are almost certainly going to lose up to 5+ games, even if you're a really good team. I mean, you could go back. You're probably going to lose roughly around 4 to 6 games if you're one of the really, really good teams. This is loss number 3. We're in November. How many more losses will we get? We could get 2. We could get 3. We could even get 4. I don't know. And we cannot just, at each loss, immediately start pointing out that this team is terrible. We're never going to win a championship. We need to fire the OC. We need to fire the DC. We need to fire the G. We cannot be in that mode. It is psychologically not sustainable. All right. And I'm not saying that John Morton is the greatest offensive coordinator ever. I'm not even saying that he doesn't need to lose his job by the end of the year. Here's what I'll say. He got us to 5-3. Let's see where we are in a month from now. If in a month from now, we're, let's say, I'm trying to think of how many games we got. Like, if we're like 7-5, okay, then sure, maybe something is wrong, and obviously, and we see that the offense is the problem. Then sure, maybe we need to make a change at the offensive coordinator role. But the thing about it is, nobody was calling for his head until we lost the game. And if we would have won the game, which we came pretty close to being able to make a crazy comeback and do, people wouldn't be calling for the firing. So that is just what bothers me. And I'm not on the camp that this guy is, the Messiah and we need to keep him. Okay, I have no qualms about potentially having to let him go. But I'm also not going to pretend that it is all him and only him. That's just not true. It's hard to win football games when, again, your offensive line and your running back had a really bad day blocking, and the other team had a really good day defensively. Here's the thing, and I've said this before. Sometimes in the NFL, you will have a game, and it doesn't matter who you're playing, where every single thing goes the other team's way and not a single thing goes your team's way. I remember in 2023, that was the Baltimore Ravens game. Every single possible good thing went Baltimore's way, and every single possible bad thing went Detroit's way. And we got to remember, too, we've had these tough losses. We haven't had them at home in a long time, but we've had these tough losses. And I am also very confident that this team will be able to bounce back. Now, if they go into Washington and they play another ugly game, win or loss, then we can continue this discussion. But I'm not ready to fire anybody. I'm not ready to say we need to move on. I'm willing to let it sort itself out because you do have a long season ahead of you with the month of November, with a couple of Thursday night games coming up at the end of the month and then into the early part of December. We will see. Now, unfortunately, I would have loved to say that, we made some boosts to our team. We helped the team out. Unfortunately, nothing happened at the trade deadline for Detroit. They opted to stand pat. Now, there are two ways of reading this. Way number one is that the Lions are satisfied with what they got, and they don't think that they should get better, or they don't want to get better. They want to just run it with their own guys, and they think they got the personnel right now to be able to win a championship. Now, the other way to read it is they wanted to make moves, but the kind of moves that they wanted to make were not feasible or were otherwise unavailable. So there was an interesting stat I saw today. No offensive lineman has been traded at the trade deadline since 2002. So as much as I would have loved to see offensive line addressed at the trade deadline, history has shown that usually doesn't happen. And outside of maybe Quinnen Williams or Jalen Phillips, there wasn't really anybody that got moved where I was like, man, I really wish the Lions were in on that. And that's not to say that, I'm happy with the trade deadline. I'm not. I'm always happier when you at least add something, even if it is, a smaller deal. It is there is a certain amount of concern that you have that now this is the third year in a row where you had trade deadlines that overall were kind of blah. I mean, I guess the Zadarius Smith trade last year was obviously needed, but it felt more like would they have made that move if Aiden Hutchinson didn't get hurt? Maybe not. So, as much as, again, I'm not in the camp of yell and scream and talk about how terrible things are, because that's just not who I am personally. I just don't. There's not much for me to get. I don't know. There's just not much for me. I don't have it in me to get angry. And it's not, if before people say I'm just being a homer, okay, fine. Call me whatever you want. Call me Homer McGee. I don't really care. I can't be angry when I don't know how this story ends. And you could say, well, why are you even talking about sports? I don't know, man. I just think it's fun. Okay. If and when we win on Sunday, people are going to feel good. If we don't win, it's just, there's nothing we can do. Okay. If we don't win, then fine. We'll be angry. I don't know. If we do win, people will talk about how we're the greatest team ever. There's no way out of this, so I'm just going to ride the wave, and then by the end of the season, we'll evaluate it. I said the same thing about the Tigers deadline. or about the Tiger season overall. So I'm not afraid of criticizing the team. I'm just not going to jump the gun unnecessarily. So, look, right now, I'm already on to Washington. I've forgotten about the Minnesota game. I want to emotionally forget about that game. Get to Washington, blow those guys out because they're going to be out Marcus Mariota. Wow, if they were out Marcus Mariota, they'd be in real trouble. They're going to be out Jaden Daniels. They're going to be out, what's his name? The linebacker. I can't think of his name right now. I was going to say Tutu Atwell. I don't think it's Tutu Atwell. They're going to be out one of their linebackers. They're going to be out a lot of guys. This should be a get-right game. Now, if you don't get right, then we might have some problems. We'll acknowledge those when we get there. How about that? Sound good? All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. All right. Lots of chats here. Let's get to it. I'm going to try to get through these fairly quickly. Good to see you back here, Mr. X. Talkin' Tomo. I hope I pronounced that right. Good to see you as well. All right. Let's take a look at this one. For having to be on the field as much as they were and starting in the starting field position, the defense played great. I agree. Yeah, I mean, hard to not give up a touchdown when the opponent starts at your own 35, right? And they got them into pretty tough spots. They forced a 4th and goal, at times. Like, I think the defense played fine. I've seen enough about Morton to say he's not it. I want him gone. I already talked about that. I'm not at that point just yet. Still skeptical about the offense because the offense still hasn't played great since after the Ravens game. True, fair enough. Argue we left at least 20 points on the board against the Browns, Bengals, and Bucks. I mean, how many points did we score against the Bengals? We did leave points on the board against the Bucks. That's true. I don't remember how many points we scored against Bengals. I feel like it was a lot, but yeah, that's true. We definitely left points on the board for sure. What would we call an acceptable victory against the Commanders? What's the spread of that game? Let me look. Certainly, you got to cover the spread, but let's see what the spread is looking like right now. I'm assuming they got a spread. Okay, Detroit right now is favored by 10 points. As far as I'm concerned, beat that and then some. Like, if you can win the game by 17 in that range, two touchdown victory on the road, yeah, I think that would be acceptable. Obviously, I don't really care how much you win by ultimately, but as far as like getting everybody back on track, I think, yeah, you definitely got to cover the spread and then a little bit more. Let me see. Hope it was the latter. If it was the case, though, I wonder how much the Lions are willing to part with because I feel I would be willing to part with a second rounder at this point. Yeah, I mean, the question is, here's the thing, and I've talked about this with other trade deadline episode reaction things. It's not just like, it's not exactly like, Madden, right? Where you just think, okay, every second round pick is viewed as equally across the league. For some teams, they're going to see, oh, your second round pick, I don't want your second round pick. Let me see some of these other teams, what they're willing to give up. Like, we'll get to it in a second. There was no way in the universe the Lions were ever going to trade for Sauce Gardner. Okay, because the Colts said, F the first round picks, and no team was going to do that other than Indianapolis, as far as I'm concerned. Get to this message here. GG from a Vikings fan. Unfortunately, y'all face us as we just got healthy. Might have been a different game a week earlier. Can't wait for round 2 at home this time. Yeah, I mean, the defense for Minnesota was, I know, like you said, they were coming back from a lot of injuries. The offense, I think you would agree, and we talked about it. It had some holes in it for sure. But obviously, your healthy defense against our O-line that has been beat up, even despite the starters, Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell and Tate Ratledge now all dealing with kind of chronic injuries at this point. So yeah, I mean, we'll see on Christmas if we can get revenge there. It's weird. Every year since we started winning the division, it's been against the Minnesota Vikings. I just kind of want to change it up at some point. I don't like, and it's also been around Christmas time. Although last year was the final game of the year, but still in the Christmassy season. So call the boy Mr. Simpson. He is a homer. Thank you. let's see, we scored somewhere in the 30s against the Bengals, though I would argue we should have scored like 50 if the offense could put us a point. Yeah, I mean, okay. I hear you, but you got to understand. Yeah, we scored 37 points against the Bengals. You got to understand something. You're not scoring 50 in this league. You're just not. Like, guys are going to drop balls. You're going to get flags. Defense. These are professional defenses. Like, we scored 50 on the Bears, but that's pretty unusual. And like, that was probably also a little bit of, okay, everybody is down on us. Everybody thinks we're terrible. We need to remind them who we are. And, the game plan was probably really go out there and expose the offense to as far as it goes. And even against the Browns, scored 34 total points. One of those was a punt return, however. So what is that? 27 points. Look, I mean, we knew it going into this year. The offense was going to look different. And we're still scoring a pretty good amount of points. I mean, certainly in our victories, we're scoring upwards of 30 plus points in each of those. I'm not at we need to fire the offensive coordinator, but I didn't like the play calling this past week. I think that's fair, but we also got to consider, again, offensive line paid absolutely terribly. So it felt very similar in a way to that Packers game where Goff just didn't really have a whole lot of time. Offense couldn't get into a rhythm. Unfortunately, Minnesota had real good field position, so they were able to get ahead. Then you're kind of playing from behind. Like I said at the opening, these games happen to every team every year, all the time. And that's not an excuse, but it is a reality. So on Sunday, our defense won't be able to hold up if they have to stay on the field all the time. Very true. See, this is another thing, too, because people will say, oh, my gosh, the defense played terribly on any given week. You got to think, how long is defense out there, right? Like, does the offense get out on 3 and outs? Is it, there's it's a multiplicity of things, right? There's things that affect other small things within the game affect the overall end of how the game plays out. Now, look, we got a tough road trip ahead of us. Commanders on the road. Now, look, Washington is they're not who we played last year. We'll just say that. Eagles on the road. Here's the thing, and I'm going to get into the trade deadline here in just a second here. The Eagles, they did, I'd say, not an amazing trade deadline, and yet I don't hear people talking about how the Eagles aren't interested in winning a Super Bowl. The Bills, they didn't do anything at the Chiefs, the Broncos. Plenty of teams didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. I think people imagine people have short memories, because what we think of is the trade deadline hits that worked. What we don't think of are the trade deadline hits that nobody remembers and did not work. We think of Von Miller, or we think of, I can't even really think of a lot of the ones that have worked. We don't think of, just most recently, Lions and Darius Smith, right? We don't think of that. So it's similar to winning in the offseason. You don't win championships in the offseason, and you don't win championships at the trade deadline. You win them in January or February, rather. But anyway, a few of the online issues could be mitigated by better play calling. If the line isn't holding up, run quick plants and other quick developing plays. Agree totally, especially against a blitz-heavy team like the Vikings. If they're sending 7 people at you, some kind of quick breaking route should be open. And I only remember yep, I agree totally. I think that's totally right. Definitely, you need to be able to adjust your game plan when things are not going your way. At the same time, Jahmyr Gibbs blocked as terribly as one running back could block against the blitz, and it was tough to watch. So, offensive coordinator needs to make adjustments, and I'm sure that they're having these conversations. I guess it's like a confidence in the organization's ability to make said adjustments, because I've seen them make their adjustments. But it's also it's a reality check. You've lost 2 out of your last 3, and one of those coming out of a bye. Let's cut the bleeding here quick, right? Let's go on a little bit of a run here. If we can, let's say we win the next 3 going into Thanksgiving. Is anybody complaining about the offense anymore? Is anybody complaining about not making a move at the trade deadline? Maybe, but at the very least, you're winning. and you're back on top, and you'll have a chance to reclaim the division on Thanksgiving. I'm just saying. Leaving Gibbs in pass blocking is also pretty annoying. We all could see it wasn't working, and they were really adjusting, and they weren't really adjusting fast enough. Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you. The game plan did not work, and it was not very effective. We also got to remember there was a blocked field goal that, that field goal doesn't get blocked. It's a tie game at the end of regulation. Obviously, again, I know the play calling might change depending on the I know what everybody's is thinking. I'm just simply saying, in these games, a lot of times, certain things going your way or not going your way determine the end result of the game. Amon-Ra dropped a third down catch. I think by that point it was still a one possession game, maybe even tied. I don't remember. But either way, again, it wasn't a great day. It wasn't. There's no sugarcoating it. Go out on the road and beat Washington. And then if you can beat Philadelphia, if you beat Philadelphia on the road on Sunday Night Football, people will 100% be back. Mark my words. They will. I think that could be a really good game because I don't know that either. I think Eagles fans probably feel very similar about their own team than some Lions fans are feeling. Anyway, we could talk about this all day long. We do have other things to get to, so let's get to them, shall we? All right. So, trade deadline. Now, I'm not talking about every single trade, okay? Because I don't care about every single trade. And neither do you. I'm only going to talk about the trades that caught my attention, okay? So the first one was the obvious one to talk about. Sauce Gardner to the Colts. 2 first-round picks for a cornerback. Now, okay. Here's what I'll say. Because there's going to be some people, especially in Lions fandom world, saying, see, the Colts will go all in. The Colts will go, but Brad Holmes is afraid. Let me tell you something. I don't care if this guy is Ed Reeve, or Ed Reed. Ed Reeve. Who's Ed Reeve? I don't care if this guy is Ed Reed. 2 first-round picks for a corner? No. Okay, maybe I might do that for Ed Reed. But you get my point, okay? Like, the Colts are a good team. They've won more football games than they've lost, okay? So they are a good team. They're probably going to win their division. They're going to host a playoff game, okay? I still do not think in any world, number one, were the Lions ever going to give up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner? No. Just, look, maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe I'm an idiot. I fundamentally disagree with giving up that kind of draft capital for that position of player. I'm not giving up 2 first-round picks for a cornerback. I barely like drafting cornerbacks in the first round to begin with. like, let alone trading picks to get them. Like, it's just not. I don't think that's a good deal. And look, does Indianapolis get better because they have Sauce Gardner? Yes, they do. If they do not win a Super Bowl this year or next year, are they going to be regretting this trade? Absolutely, 100% they will. Now, they're willing to take that risk. Here's what I think. And I don't know because I'm not a Colts fan. But if there were Colts fans listening in or whatever, please feel free to let me know how you feel about this. To me, this feels like they know this isn't sustainable. They know that what they're doing is kind of fugazi. So what they're going to do is they're going to go all in. They're going to push their chips in, and they're just going to put it all for this year. And if it doesn't work, they're probably going to get fired. But if it does work, they're going to be heroes. Okay? Like that. And I'm fine with that. Like, I can accept those terms. Now, the Lions are not in that position. They're not in that mode, and I don't think they ever really will be in that mode. And certainly not, again, for a cornerback. So, very good player. The Colts are better because of it. No, not something I would want to do. I'm just being honest with you. Is it time to talk about the other Jonathan in Michigan? Yeah, we already talked about him, actually, last week on last week's show. The title of the show, I believe, was "What Does Jonathan Smith Do?" or something like that. You can go ahead and watch that, Mr. X. Yeah, he's got to go. He as far as Jonathan's, or as far as John or Jonathan's in the state of Michigan that need to get fired, he is at least one that we can all agree Lions were never going to give up 2 first-round picks for anyone. I think that's pretty reasonable. Yeah, no. I mean, I don't even, like, off-season trade, maybe you do that. Trade deadline? I don't know, man. That's pretty wild. And again, for a cornerback, if it was Micah Parsons at the trade deadline or Max Crosby or Myles, maybe you have the conversation. Sauce Gardner, he's a good player, a real good player, but he's a cornerback. And that position, as far as position value goes, it's not the difference maker for the most part. Now, maybe I'll be wrong, but only one way to find out. And I can appreciate when a team understands what kind of a team they are and, goes for it. Right, exactly. And even from this, Detroit already in their mind, they're like, well, we're going to get DJ Reed back. Terrion Arnold's already back, and he looked pretty good, actually, last week. Kirby Joseph's come back. We don't need to trade 2 first-round picks for a cornerback. Doesn't need to happen. Consider giving up a first and a third for an edge. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think there were any edge rushers that even went, except for some no-name that went to the Bears, who they needed as a depth guy. Like, no edge rushers really moved. That was what was so weird about this trade deadline. Really, all the big moves happened today, and it kind of felt like more of a seller's market, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. So we'll get to some of the other picks, or some of the other trades. The other one is Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks for a 4th and 6th round pick this year. Here's what I'll say. I love this trade for Seattle. I think it is an excellent trade. As excellent of a trade as you could get. First of all, you give a 4th and a 6th. Those guys are probably not going to play for you anyway. And you get a really solid wide receiver, one of the more underrated players in Rashid Shaheed. Let me just pull up this guy's stats because I don't think a lot of people talk about him because, well, he plays for the Saints. But look, just a couple of years ago, 2023, he was an all-pro receiver. He had, where's the touchdowns? Hold on. He had 5 total touchdowns. He had hold on. I'm trying to find his total yards here. He had 719 yards. He's a solid receiver. Real solid stuff. And that, they already have Jackson Smith and Jigba already, of course, in Seattle. They got Cooper Kupp. It's a great trade. I think it's a really, really solid trade for them. Rashid Shaheed, he was not going to do anything in New Orleans. So good for him to get out and go on to a team that actually might be able to win that division and host some playoff games. And the final trade that, to me, it is the quintessential what is the plan trade. And that was the Cowboys trading for Quinnen Williams for a 2027 first-round pick, which is going to be their higher of the 2027 because they got 2 first-round picks that year. Can somebody explain to me what exactly is the Cowboys' plan? Like, here's the thing. Does he make their defense better? Yes, he does. But what are they trying to do? And that is really what gets me. Because, first of all, we'll talk about it in a second. The Cowboys just got embarrassed to the Cardinals, a team that I don't think anybody would have thought had any shot of winning that game, even with the fact that the Cardinals are terrible. Or even with the fact that the Cowboys' defense is terrible, I should say. And then after that, they decide, you know what? We're going to get Quinnen Williams and help their defensive line. Yeah, I was under the impression that Kenny Clark was going to help them stop the run. Why'd they trade Micah Parsons? Like, here's the thing. This is what makes it so confusing, is that you traded Micah Parsons, and now you're adding at the deadline in your defensive line. Why didn't you just keep the guy if your thought was that you were going to try to add at the deadline? It just doesn't simply make any sense. Okay, like, whatever it is they're trying to do, it does not make logical sense. So, yeah, I guess they're better, but I just don't see what the vision is for them. And as far as all these trades go for the Lions, obviously we don't have a need for a receiver. We already talked about Sauce Gardner. And Quinnen Williams, look, I think he's a good player. He obviously would have made Detroit better, but we don't really have a problem in our defensive line, at least the interior of the defensive line, which is what Quinn Williams plays. We got Aleem McNeil back. We're gonna get guys like Pascal back. We have DJ Reader. Yeah, like we just drafted Tyleek Williams. We don't really have a need for that. So again, like of the big trades that were made, none of them are like, gosh, why didn't the Lions do that? And that's why I can't be so mad at the trade deadline. And I think the reason why people are more mad at the trade deadline is because we lost this past Sunday. If we would have won, I don't think people would be as mad. People would be like, well, we're 6-2. So what's the big deal? Yeah. So anyway, maybe that was the trade what Jerry was hyping up. Yeah, probably. I mean, it's the biggest name for sure. They got fleeced because they gave up their own 2027 first rounder and not the Packers. Granted, that trade might not happen if they didn't have that pick, but still, very true. Parsons would cost too much money for Jerry, though that is only because they waited to sign him. If they didn't, Parsons' contract would have been $10 to $15 million cheaper. Yeah, right, exactly. Like, they screwed up with Micah Parsons, and now they're paying the price. And the thing is, being buyers at the deadline and getting Quinn and Williams, in my mind, it's like kind of too little too late. You know, you're already in a hole here. You know, you're 3-5-1, and I mean you got the Raiders on Monday night next week, so maybe you can get a nice bounce back win. But then you got to play the Eagles, you got to play the Chiefs, you got to play Detroit. Those outside of those are three very losable games for this Cowboys team. There's a reality where they are, 4-7-1 going into Detroit on Thursday night. That's a real possibility for them. And yeah, it's just, I don't understand what the thought process is. It just, man, Jerry Jones, what a guy. Never do drugs, kids. Never. Don't ever do drugs. Just don't. Whatever drugs he's doing, do the opposite of those. If he's eating mushrooms, I don't know, eat green beans. Is green beans really the opposite of mushrooms? Yeah, I think so. But the other thing I wanted to point out about the trade deadline, one moment. And yes, I agree with your point there. O-linemen barely get moved. Here's the thing. I alluded to it earlier. The Bills didn't make a trade. The Chiefs didn't make a trade. The Broncos didn't make a trade. Hold on, I'm blanking on the other ones. The Packers didn't make a trade. The Rams, that was another surprise one. They didn't make a trade. The F them picks Rams. They didn't make a trade. I feel like this trade deadline was a seller's market, and buyers really weren't all that interested in the kinds of players that were going to be moved. I mean, we saw the Chiefs tried to trade for Breece Hall. They were going to give him a 4th-round pick, and the Jets hung up the phone. What are you doing, New York? I mean, good for them, right? So, I just don't... I don't think this was much of a buyer's trade deadline. And sometimes you have those years. Sometimes it's a seller's market. Sometimes it's a buyer's market. You hope when you're a winner that it's a buyer's market. Yeah, Bucks didn't, right? It's... And we'll get to it in the Week 9 recap, because I think right now nobody really knows who's that good. And teams are like, you know what? I'm not willing to sell the future to buy the past. So, because I'm not convinced that right now, right here is the moment where we got to strike. It felt like a lot of the teams that made big moves, they were the kind of middle teams where they're not quite sure if they're bad or if they're really good. Like, I think the Colts Sauce Gardner thing is a big example. And I think this is, and you can, again, Colts fans, you can feel free to tear me up if you think this is not right. I think they totally have the mindset of, this is not sustainable. We don't know how we're doing this. This was not the plan. We're just going to ride this wave and we'll go down with the ship, basically. So yeah. So anyway, Vikings just played their asses off. McCarthy was decent. Not good, not bad. I agree with that. Welcome to the chat. GizWizard83. I wonder if numbers 1 through 82 were taken. Anyway, that's the oldest joke in the universe, and I will always enjoy making it. Anyway, Let's get into the rest of the NFL week, though, because there is a lot of stuff to talk about. I do want to do a section on, are these teams good? And I got 3 teams that I want to talk about. And obviously with the trade deadline, it becomes a little bit more interesting. My first question for this week. Do the Bengals have the worst defense in the history of the universe? So we got to go back in time a little bit, literally. See, the universe started, roughly a few billion years ago. And I'm pretty much convinced that they do have the worst defense in the universe. Like, obviously you got to talk about, Emperor Nero in the Roman Empire. He burned down the city and he allowed the German Visigoths. Well, he didn't allow this is sometime later to invade. You also have later in that time, you had the Attila the Hun invade and Pope Leo the Great. He ends up stopping Attila the Hun. So that was pretty good defense, actually, by the Pope in that instance. You also have other instances like the French in World War II. The Germans famously invade through Belgium. But I think ultimately the worst defense is truly the Cincinnati Bengals. I just wanted to make some history jokes. I'm sorry if nobody understood those references, but you got to understand some of those references. Anyway, this is okay. The Bears getting the win, fine. You give them credit. You win the game in a crazy way. Joe Flacco threw for 470 yards. He had four touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Joe Flacco played out of his mind, and they very well should have won this game. But somehow, some way, the Bengals defense has the open door policy of Walmart at 3 a.m. It's crazy. They let everybody in. It's funny because I had Kyle Monongai for a week in fantasy because some sort of injury or bye week or whatever it was. And I dropped him because I was like, okay, this guy's not going to do much. And then this week, he goes out, he runs for 176 yards. That's 17 points. Whatever. I'm not salty about it. I'm not. And look, Caleb Williams, yeah, he played a good game. But again, and we talked about it last week, he does this where he'll have these good games against teams that are just not good. And then he plays a good team and he plays like garbage. or he'll play a garbage team and play like it's not consistent, basically. I don't know. It's pretty funny. The fact that the Bengals lost that game, obviously I wasn't happy about it because I always want my division opponents to lose. But that was a tough one. It's a tough one to watch for them, at least. Also, a little funny in a game with UMich versus UMich, an MSU player sealed the game. Wait, hold on. I'm trying to think. What game are you talking about? What game are you talking about, actually? Oh, I see. Oh, the Vikings. Oh, yes, that's right. Jalen Naylor. Yeah, no, I was surprised when he ended up going into the draft when he did, but good for him. He's slowly developed a role there in Minnesota. So yeah, I always thought he was a really good receiver at Michigan State. Like watching him. Those were the good days, and those are gone forever. Maybe not forever. I can't imagine what their fans are going through right now. 2 utterly embarrassing losses in back-to-back weeks. Yeah, no, it's tough. And you know what's worse is that it doesn't get much better in the future. They got to go on the road to play Cincinnati. Then you got to go at home, or you go back home and you got to play the Patriots and Drake May, who's having, one of the better seasons that I certainly didn't expect. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And they didn't even sell the deadline, really. I think they might have traded somebody, actually. But, they didn't do much. It's terrible. It's terrible. Joe Burrow, look, I hope you enjoy your money. But you really shouldn't have stuck with this organization because clearly they don't want to stick by you. How do you do the impossible, the onside kick, and still lose? They got an onside kick? I didn't even realize that. Good for them. Yeah, no, that's tough. It's tough. So, yeah, I think they do actually have the worst defense in the history of the universe. I'm convinced about that. The other thing I am convinced of is that the Packers are totally fake. So the Panthers stun the Packers in Lambeau. They win an ugly 16-13 game. Jordan Love threw 37 times, got 273 yards. no touchdowns and 1 pick. Should have had 2, frankly. And look, they're down Tucker Kraft now. That's the real unfortunate thing for Green Bay. They're down their number 1 tight end. And if things are going bad offensively now, they're only going to get worse without him in their lineup. That's for sure, because obviously tight ends do more than just catch the football. They also block, and that means less protection for Jordan Love, and furthermore, less protection for that run game and Josh Jacobs. It's a weird thing because don't look now. The Panthers have a winning record. Now, they're not going to win their division, but they kind of feel a little feisty, don't they? In a weird way, it's like maybe they're not an auto loss anymore or an auto win anymore. Obviously, they got murdered by the Bills. Okay, that goes without saying. But they got that win against the Cowboys. And they also got that win against the Falcons. They're going to be playing the Falcons again in a couple of weeks. But the game I would keep an eye out for at the very end of the month of November is that game against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the 49ers are kind of in it right now. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe in a few weeks, Panthers, maybe they kind of do a little bit of spoiler. Maybe they play the role of the Purdue spoiler makers, and they start just nipping at teams. They got to play the Rams at home. Maybe they just do a little, just get under your skin. I don't know. And furthermore, just by the way, they have won 4 out of their last 5. So once again, they're not good, but they'll kind of, don't let them get ahead. Because Rico Dowdle, he's having a great year. Great. Also, nice move, Dallas. Really good idea letting him walk. Now, the other one I want to talk about is that the Chargers get the win, but Joe Alt is dead. And so my question is, of course, is Justin Herbert going to die this year? So I've always been a pretty big fan of Justin Herbert. Obviously, Seth, the co-host, who unfortunately is enslaved by Home Depot and may never come back. He loves Justin Herbert. He loves his beloved Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego. But unfortunately, he might have to die this year because they're going to have to put him in. Seth is going to go in and play offensive line for them. Poor Justin Herbert. They get the win over the Titans, but at what cost? At what cost? It's unfortunate because they're also down on Marion Hampton. And believe me, I know because I have him in fantasy. Thanks, Chargers, shirks. Anyway, so yeah, is he going to die? And the answer is, of course, yes. Yes. Let me get to some of these chats. Which team has the worst owner, Cowboys or Bengals? Wow. I will just say the Bengals because at least the Cowboys owner seemingly wants to get better. The Bengals owner does not seem to show any interest in actually getting better. The Cowboys owner is incredibly misinformed on how to get better, but he does want to get better. So there's that. Right now, it might be appropriate to call every NFL team, a fraud. I guess you could say everyone is a fraud, so no one is. Yeah, right. That's kind of my thought. It's like, well, if there's no good teams, then it doesn't matter, right? like the reality is you play who's in front of you. So, yeah, it's true that I think there's a lot of kind of sloppy play or otherwise inconsistent play. There's not one team that's just dominating all of the others. But maybe we're just in the kind of middle of the season grind. I'm sure by the end of the month, into December especially, we'll start to see some teams pull away. Maybe the Bills, Patriots, Lions. We'll kind of see some of those teams pull away from the manure, for lack of a better term, from the kind of quicksand around them where teams are kind of staying above. They're holding on to a tree branch. They're doing whatever it is they can. But as the going gets going and as injuries start to pile up or otherwise as experience starts to take an effect, the reality will end up having its way with these teams. So the Bills also, speaking of the Bills, they get another win against the Chiefs, of course, in dramatic fashion, just a 7-point victory. But, every time they beat the Chiefs in the regular season, I think, okay, this is the year. They're going to finally do it, right? This is the year where they're going to go to the playoffs and they're going to probably lose to the Chiefs again. And that makes me sad. That truly makes me sad. Now, here's the thing. I will say this. I don't think the Chiefs are very good, especially they're 1-3 on the road. I mean, that's 3 out of your 4 losses total have been on the road. If you can't win on the road, you're not going to have a whole lot of success. And furthermore, again, they didn't do much at the trade deadline. Like, Mahomes is pretty much carrying this entire team because when your running room is Kareem Hunt and friends, it's not good. Okay, it's not good. Rashee Rice, fine enough receiver. He can make some noise, but outside of him, you got the corpse of Travis Kelce. You got Hollywood Brown. It's just blah. And as far as the Bills go, their defense is still the question mark. And maybe I feel like every good team that's kind of like the question mark, like the Lions, like, is their defense going to be able to be good enough? Maybe right now it's their offense, but you know what I mean. Both of these teams very well can make the playoffs. Had the Bills actually beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs? I don't think they have. That one year, what was it, 2021? I believe that was, it was 21. I think it was 21. I'm trying to think now. Was it 2021, that year where it was back and forth at the the final 2 minutes were craziness? Pretty sure that was 2021. That I think that year might have broken them in a way. You had 12 seconds to win the game and you failed. Sucks. Keep winning against them in the regular season and losing the playoff. Yeah, no, it's one of those rivalries. It's like Brady and Manning. Brady would lose in the regular season. I don't actually know if he would lose in the regular season. I'd have to look that one back. But he would definitely always win in the postseason. It was like to the point where people were really questioning Peyton Manning, which is funny looking back. But people, it's weird looking back at like the live kind of discussions about some players. It's like, oh, can Kobe win on his own? Can Peyton Manning do it? Is he a winner, or is he just like a stat patter? People don't understand. It doesn't take 3 years to win a Super Bowl. Usually it takes somewhere around 5 to 10, right? Like, which is not a comforting statement, but it is the reality. Like, even Andy Reid, it took him several years before he had a Super Bowl team in Kansas City. Anyway, so on the note, though, that you alluded to of every team being a fraud, we're going to get to a special segment. Let's answer this question first. Do you think J.J. McCarthy could turn to a problem if he starts heating up with more games under his belt? I mean, it's certainly possible. I can't rule it out in principle. I'm not sure that he showed me enough in that game. He made the right throws when you need to make them, but he's playing with a lead. So he was able to kind of just maintain that. He didn't have to do much because his defense was able to bail him out of tough spots. I think right now, Minnesota, they don't have a immediate need to have that superstar quarterback. They can allow for J.J. McCarthy to grow at a pretty organic level. The early returns are that he's had about one good game this past week and several very not good games, and also the injury concern with him. I don't know. I'm not convinced on J.J. McCarthy, but I also don't want to write him totally off. We'll see what they look like over the next 3 weeks. That's usually a good barometer. But okay. On the point that Mr. X made earlier about all teams being frauds, I got 3 teams for you. And 2 of them didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. One of them did. And these are all teams where I look at them and I see their record and I say, I just still don't know if you're good. So let's talk about it. The first team I want to talk about is the one, the only, the Los Angeles Rams. So the Rams this year, they are 6-2. They are first in the NFC West. Matthew Stafford is playing very good. Puka Nacua playing very well. Devontae Adams, I thought he was kind of done. He was just looking for a nice place to live, Los Angeles. He's playing well. Like the Rams, despite the loss of Cooper Kupp in the offseason, have not missed a beat. And I guess it's a Sean McVay coach team, so you didn't expect them to, falter very much. However, here's what I'll say. You look at their wins, and I'm going to read them off to you, and you're going to notice a trend here. Win against the Texans at home, win against the Titans on the road, win against the Colts at home, win against the Ravens at home or on the road, win against the Jags, win against the Saints. Both of those technically at home. The Jags game was the Britain game or the London game, whatever. So it's not technically a home game, but the thing I notice is that all the teams they beat outside of the Colts, and that game they won in a walk-off touchdown, all of those games all those teams are not that good. Now, their two losses are the Eagles and the 49ers. I don't think the 49ers are that good, and the Eagles are also somewhat questionable at times. Again, I hate to play the schedule game because you play who's in front of you, and it sort of is what it is. But look, the Rams are playing well, and I'm not totally certain that they are really good, but they're definitely one of the teams that when you play them, they're probably going to score a lot. But they also are going to have games where you're like, what is this team? How are they in the position that they're in? It's a weird mix. And also, very good point. AD Mitchell. Yeah, very good point. Very good point. I even forgot about that. That's a good call out. And so, look, ahead of their schedule, they got the 49ers on the road, but, I guess it's, not really a home game, not really a road game for them. Then you got the Seahawks at home, Buccaneers at home, Panthers on the road, Cardinals on the road, Lions at home. Like, they got their division is kind of a weird mix of, with the Seahawks being good, the 49ers being kind of questionable, and the Cardinals being the Cardinals. So they got a case to where they could very well end up with that division title. But, you wonder with Matthew Stafford's back, is he going to be good by the end of the year? Is Puka Nacua going to manage to stay healthy? He's already dealt with some injuries this year, and he dealt with injuries last year. So it's kind of a weird team. They didn't add at the trade deadline, so I don't know. I'm not saying they're bad. They're a feisty team. They're a good team. They're a team that certainly I would not be shocked if I see them in the NFC Championship game, if not even potentially the Super Bowl, just given the NFC is kind of apoplectic at the moment. But I'm not totally, if people are like, oh, they're the best team, no, not quite there. Now, team number 2 is another kind of weird one, and that is Denver Broncos. So the Denver Broncos, similar, first place in their division, 7-2. And once again, we look at their schedule. They've won 6 in a row after dropping 2 straight, one of those to a division rival on the road, the Chargers. They also lost to the Colts in just a dramatic turn of events, a game that they very well should have won, but a stupid penalty, got them where they are. But you go ahead and you look at their wins as well. And it's a win against the Titans, win against the Bengals, win against the Eagles on the road. That's probably the most impressive win. Win against the Jets, win against the Giants, win against the Cowboys, win against the Texans. None of those teams are really scary at all. And they got a Thursday night game against the Raiders that they will almost certainly feast on. Unfortunately for them, things don't get that much harder. Or fortunately for them, did I say unfortunately? Fortunately for them, things don't get that much harder. I think I said unfortunately. My bad. Because they got the Chiefs at home. That's probably going to be a tough game. They always play the Chiefs always play them tough. But you got the Commanders on the road. Commanders probably by that point they might, who knows, Jaden Daniels' status or the rest of that team's status just due to the injuries. The Raiders on the road. They got the Packers at home, Jaguars at home, Chiefs on the road, and Chargers at home. They very well could be the team to win that division. And I don't remember where I ended up putting them in that in my win total prediction. But the Broncos, the thing about them, really good defense. Offense is questionable. Offense is very questionable. I like Cortland Sutton. I think he's a very good receiver. I like, who's the other guy they got? Mims. I think he's a very good receiver as well. J.K. Dobbins, very good running back. Bo Nix is the question mark. And I just, I don't know. Like it's something about this It's similar to the Rams. They're kind of like the Rams of the AFC, except like you flip the defense and the offense. Whereas the Rams got the offense, but you're not quite sure about what they're doing defensively exactly. And I don't know. There's a weird team. Final team I want to talk about, another NFC West team, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. So, especially the reason I want to talk about them is they just played a monster game against the Commanders. They blew them to smithereens, 38-14, dominant win. They are 6-2 in first place in the NFC West. Obviously tied with the Los Angeles Rams with that record. I don't know who has the tiebreaker, or I don't know. They haven't played each other yet. So that should be a great game in a couple of weeks. Here's my question. Is Sam Darnold going to be the guy that gets you where you need to go, Seattle? Because I'm old enough to remember last year, Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold, dicing it up, MVP candidate, playing like a stud. And then as soon as the division was on the line, he faltered. As soon as that playoff game was on the line, he faltered. I'm not a believer in Sam Darnold, but I cannot deny that this team, once again, is winning games. But you got to, again, consider whoever they beaten. They're beating the Steelers, who are bad. They're beating the Saints, the Cardinals, the Jaguars, the Texans, and, of course, the Commanders, as already alluded to. They are not good teams that they're beating. They're not good teams that they're beating. For them, their schedule gets interesting. I won't say super difficult, but it gets interesting. You got the Cardinals at home. Frankly, that should probably be a win. Then you got to go on the road to play the Rams. Now, on the road to play the Rams is basically a neutral site game for them. But still, you got to go on the road to play the Titans. That should be an easy win. You got to play the Vikings at home. Again, we'll see where J.J. McCarthy is by that point, but the Vikings could be a feisty team by that point. Falcons on the road. Probably not going to give you too much trouble. Colts. Who knows where they're at? They're going to be a better team with Sauce Gardner for sure. Then you got the Rams again. Panthers on the road. 49ers on the road. There's a world where I could see this train starting to fall apart. If they drop that game against the Rams, if they drop that game against the Vikings, and they're getting wins against the Titans, the Falcons, and the Cardinals, you start to think, okay, something ain't right. Sam Darnold, seeing ghosts, the whole shebang. It's not good. This is probably the team that, of the three teams that I've talked about, they're probably the second in terms of team that I believe in over not believing. The Broncos are the team that I don't really believe that much in, unfortunately. Sorry to the great Brandon Perna, the internet's favorite the internet's favorite Bronco fan. But they are probably the team that I'm like, I don't know. Sean Payton feels like, the second iteration of, what's his name? Oh my gosh, who was the Saints coach? Mike Ditka feels a little bit like that. Feels like you're kind of doing stuff that worked maybe 10 years ago, but not sure if it'll work now. Getting by, I don't know. But yeah, the Seahawks, they're at least a fun team, and they're going to be more fun with Rashid Shaheed as well. Maybe they end up sneaking by and getting that division. It'd be pretty cool. Especially if the Rams don't get that division, because I don't want the Rams to get the division. All right? I don't like the Rams. Is that a crime? No. It's a reality. Okay. So those are a few teams. Obviously, there's more teams to talk about. You got the Eagles, you got the Chiefs, you got even the Bills to consider. I think right now we're in a point in the season, nobody really knows who's good, and we probably won't know who's really, really good until the end of the month, or maybe even the end of December, i.e. going into the playoffs. That's just how it works in the NFL. That's why they get us to watch. Anyway, let's see some of these. Say the Rams are tier 2, just below Super Bowl contenders. Yeah, I'd say that's probably true. Rams are annoying. I agree. I feel like they shouldn't be that good. Yeah, there's something. I agree. I can't really explain it, but yeah, I'm with you. Broncos are probably just below the Rams, maybe 2.5. Probably less of a contender than the Rams since their offense is worse and Bo Nix has less. Yeah, I agree totally. Sam Darnold poops when games may tear. I don't know what Mater means at the end there, but yes, he does poop. That's true. Seattle was a tier 2 team with the Rams. At least they lost a close shutout against the Bucs. Also, these are not the teams I was expecting. There are so many teams to think of. Steelers, Colts, 49ers. Yeah, so many conversations. Yeah, right, exactly. This is the thing. I wanted to go with just 3 teams, and these were just the 3 teams that I was just like looking through the scores. I was like, yeah, I kind of want to talk about that team. Because as far as the Steelers go, like I'm just not a believer. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to do much for them. I think he's past his prime. I think if you keep putting pressure on him, he's not going to be able to succeed on that team and in that environment. The Colts, look, I've made my peace with the Colts. I think that they right now they think that this is unsustainable. I think they're going for it, and they're gonna people are either gonna get their heads put on a plaque, or they're gonna get their heads put on a silver platter. Those are the 2 options. 49ers, I just think they're injured, and I think the injuries are eventually going to catch up with them. They might be able to win some games. They have a lot of talent despite the injuries, but I think eventually it's going to start to really wear on them. So, but yeah, there's so many teams to do that with. So, I mean, we could have done a segment on the Steelers, Colts, and the 49ers. Who do I think is the MVP right now? Gosh, that's a great question. Let me actually see who's leading the MVP race. MVP NFL odds. So we're just looking at FanDuel Sportsbook, which again, this is not, these are not official things. Right now, Josh Allen is leading. I think if I had to pick a guy, I'd probably just end up going with Josh. Like Mahomes is keeping his team in it, but if they don't win, he's not going to win the award for sure. In a weird way, I mean, Drake May is in there, but I just no, I'm not giving him the MVP over Josh Allen. I'm just not. But yeah, no, it's an interesting race for sure. Or the other award winners, just about. Yeah, let's take a look at some of the other ones. So, Offensive Player of the Year, Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, I could definitely understand that. Bijan Robinson is up there with 2,500, which is interesting. Micah Parsons is up there for Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, I mean, he's basically the only guy on the Packers that's keeping them alive. And, that's saying something. Rookie of the Year, Jackson Dart, which is kind of crazy to me. I feel like I would say Emeka Egbuka, but I don't know. He's kind of been hurt, so hard to say if he's going to take that role. You got Abdul Carter for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I can't really speak to many of the defensive rookies. Coach of the Year, Shane Steichen. Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be Shane Steichen in Indianapolis, especially if they end up winning that division. Mike Vrabel, I could see that as well. McDonald, I could see that. Comeback Player of the Year. I could see it being Aiden Hutchinson. I really could. Daniel Jones is also kind of a fun pick. The leading candidate is Dak Prescott. I don't know. Like, I guess he came back from injury, but the team is not very good. I'd be surprised to see a guy whose team is not very good win this award. And with the Cowboys and the 49ers, the 2 other lead odds getters, I'm not totally convinced that those guys would end up getting it, especially if those teams end up faltering, which leaves Aiden Hutchinson, basically. All right. Is that it then? Yes and no. I do want to briefly talk about the World Series. I'm not going to talk very long. I put it in the show notes, and I feel like I should acknowledge it. So the Dodgers go back-to-back. They win Game 7 in extra innings. Probably one of the best postseasons I can recall. You had multiple winner-take-all games. Obviously, the Tigers were a part of one. The Seattle Mariners were a part of, the Toronto Blue Jays, I should say, were a part of multiple. A very exciting postseason for sure. And yes, Yamamoto is him. He came alive in the postseason for sure. And he played excellent, well-deserved World Series MVP. Here's what I will say, though. I've seen a lot of sad ways to lose games. If I'm a Toronto Blue Jays fan, I might have to take some time off of work. And I've actually thought about this because I was really devastated when the Lions lost to the Commanders. I was emotionally Like, I didn't want to get out of bed the next day. Like, that's how bad it was. And I've never felt that way about a loss for the most part. I felt angry and upset and sad, but I've never been like to the point where I'm like, I don't even want to look at my phone or talk to people. I don't want to see anybody's face. I just want to be alone and die. Like, that was like legitimately. And I'm not saying that's the right reaction to have, but it is the reaction I did have. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here, I don't know what you're going through, Blue Jays fans, but just know that's tough. That's tough. There's nothing I could say that'll make you feel better, because all you want is to go back to bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, to walk it off, and you don't get a run. I know it's tough. That's baseball, and that's sports. Like, this is one of those things that, unfortunately, many sports fans cannot cope with. So I'm a Catholic, so we have a phrase in Latin called memento mori, which is remember your death. And for sports fans, I think they don't cope with the reality that you could live and never see a championship your whole life. It's very possible. I mean, be a Minnesota sports fan. If you're a Minnesota sports fan born after the year, I think it was 1995, whenever the Twins won the World Series, if you're anyone that's from like around my age, right, to plus like 5 years, you've literally never seen a championship. Not like a championship as in like you played in one. Like, your team has never been in one. Not at the college level, not at the pro level, nothing. And the fact is, by the end of any given season, ultimately, one team is happy and 30 or so are not. Or 20, like somewhere in that range. And that's a reality, Like, I mean, let me give you an example right now, okay? The Pistons right now, they're off to a really good start. And I'm enjoying watching the Pistons games. I think they're very entertaining. Cade is him. It's a lot of fun. I understand that come May or come June, I could feel angst and disgust about the Pistons and be disappointed that I wasted all that time watching their games because they, get blown out in a game 7 or they get swept in the playoffs or whatever it is. I have to understand that is entirely a possibility, but guess what? I just can't stop. I will be damned if I stop watching, and that's the year that one of my teams goes all the way and doesn't. And that's, that's a tough thing to accept. And especially for Lions fans, there have been people who have lived and died their whole life and never saw a Lions playoff win. There have been people who lived and died their whole life and never saw the Lions go to the NFC Championship game. There have been people who lived and died who haven't seen the Lions win a championship. And, it's funny. Like, 1957 was a long time ago. We're actually going to get to the point here where the people who were alive for that are not going to be alive anymore. It's kind of like, this is so dark, but also relevant. It's kind of like World War II vets. All right? Hear me out, okay? Hear me out. First of all, if you see a World War II vet, thank him, because obviously frankly, any service member, thank them for their service. But thank them in particular because they're not going to be with us for very long. So in the same way that you would thank a service member, reach out to your Lions fan grandpa who watched the 1957 championship win, or listened to it on the radio, or went to the game. They're not going to be with us for much longer. And that means that we will not, like, literally, there will not be a person on planet Earth who will remember a Lions championship. It's crazy. Yeah, right? Like, listen, I've been obviously, sports have been a factor in my life since I've been growing up, because my dad loves sports, my brother loves sports, my whole family, they love Detroit sports. They've been a factor in my life. I wouldn't say I really cared until probably college. So since I've been 18, roughly, I'm I'm 26. It's been 8 years. I haven't seen a championship. It could be another 8 years. I could not see another championship. My dad, I don't know how old he is. Should I know how old he is? I don't know. He's an older guy. He's seen, let's see, as far as championships that he can actually recall and, be a part of, he's seen all 3 Pistons championships. He saw the Red Wings 4 championships. And he saw the Tigers 1 championship. So what is that? 3 plus 4. Hold on. Is it 8? 8 total? Yeah. Yeah, because it's 3 championships plus the 1 for the Tigers is 4, plus the other 4 for the Red Wings is 8. And I guess if you want to include college, he's seen 1 national championship in college basketball for Michigan State and a Rose Bowl. So that's 10. 10 over 50 plus years of life. What is that? Hold on. Let me actually do the math. We're going to do the math here real quick. So he's roughly 58. I don't know exactly if that's, but divide that by 10. So that's 5 championships. Or I divided it by 10. Hold on. What am I trying to do? Hold on. Math is hard. What is that? That means, what is that? 5 championships a year over 50 years? I think. No, wait, hold on. That doesn't make sense. Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm doing this wrong. Hold on. 58. Or hold on. Just ignore me. Shut up. Don't laugh. 10 divided by 58 equals times 100. Now I know what I'm doing. 17% of his life, a championship has happened. 17%. A 17% success rate in sports. That's tough. And he isn't he's not elderly. And even, you know what? Let me include my grandfather on this. So he's in his 80s. So that means he saw, how many championships did the Lions win in the 50s? They won 3, I think. So they won 3 in the 50s. So we're gonna do this math. We're gonna figure this out. So 3 in the 50s plus the Tigers. Oh, geez, hold on. I gotta include all the Red Wings. Hold on. This is gonna be tough. Detroit Red Wings. Hold on, guys. We're gonna figure this out. I think he saw maybe not all the Red Wing Stanley Cups, but all the ones in the 50s. So we'll count from 53 and beyond, maybe 51. We'll do 51 and beyond. So let's see. Red Wings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 7 for the Red Wings, 2 for the Tigers, because 68 and 84, that's 9. The 3 for the Lions is 12. And then the 3 for the Pistons is 15. And then if we include college, he likes Michigan, so he's got 2 national championships there. So that's 17. So let's do 17 divided by, I think he's 85. I don't know. If I got that wrong, sorry, Grandpa. That's 20%. 20% of his life. A 20% success rate for sports. Over 80 years. 80 plus years. The math is not exactly perfect. That's crazy. Why do we watch sports? Why do we do this to ourselves? Uplifting stuff. Don't forget, you're going to die, guys. Don't forget. Just a reminder, you will die. The death rate for humanity is 100%. Anyway. This show has really gone off the rails. Okay, so anyway, picks. Yeah, fun. All right, let's do the picks. Let's hit the music, shall we? Music. What music? This one. All right. And remember, you're gonna die. Okay, so. I actually did pretty well last week. I've managed to gain a couple of games on Seth, but still a long way to go. All right. Thursday night football. Raiders at the Broncos. I am going to go with the Broncos on this one for obvious reasons. The Raiders are very bad. I don't have to say much more. Give me the Broncos. Falcons at the Colts. I've said I've questioned the Colts for all year, but yet I'm going to take them because as much as I've questioned the Colts, I don't know what the Falcons are doing. Raheem Morris, he didn't work the first time in Atlanta. I'm not sure why they thought he was going to work the second time. Give me the Colts. They just added Sauce Gardner. They're gonna feel juiced up. I think they're gonna get the win pretty easily at home. Saints at the Panthers. Ew, yuck, gross. I'm gonna vomit right now. Give me the Panthers. The Saints are really just that bad. As bad as the Panthers are, the Saints are just like sad. It's like a homeless guy with no legs versus the Panthers, who are just a regular homeless guy. So, yeah. Great analogy. Giants at the Bears. Give me the Bears. The G-Men, it's going to be tough. No more Scattaboo, although they've already experienced that this past week. The Bears, they're coming off a nice win, I guess. Look, they're not a great team, but they're not a terrible team. I think the Bears will get the win. The Giants are just a shell, truly. Abdul Carter is about the only thing keeping them afloat, or keeping their future future bright in some way. And Jackson Dart's playing pretty decent now. Jaguars at the Texans, little AFC South rivalry. I don't even know who to take here. My instinct is to take the Texans because I'm just not a Trevor Lawrence believer. I'm not a believer in the Jaguars overall. If the Texans can get to like 20 points, which is such a low bar, that's less than 3 touchdowns. And that's not including the extra point. If they can just, if they can just get to 20 points, they're probably going to win this game because their defense is that good. The Texans, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs necessarily, but their defense is good enough to hold them in games. Bills are the Bills. They're playing the Dolphins. Don't care. Not going to elaborate. Give me the Bills. Literally not going to elaborate. Ravens at the Vikings. I'm going to take the Vikings on this one. It sucks because I would love for nothing more than for Lamar Jackson to stun on these hoes. But I don't really believe in this Ravens defense. Not that the Vikings offense is super, unstoppable, but if they can get Justin Jefferson involved, they get Jordan Addison involved, it's going to be very tough for the Ravens to be able to stop really much of anything, even if Lamar Jackson is in there going back and forth with them. It might be a shootout. If it becomes a shootout, then I might lean the Ravens, but I just don't think that Lamar is all that in at this point. I think he's back in the games, but I wouldn't be surprised if, by the end of November, he's playing a fun little game of where do I want to be rather than here, and he's like picking places like Chernobyl, for example. Browns taking on the Jets, and that is football terrorism. That's what that is. I genuinely don't know who to take. Can we tie? Can we get a tie? I don't know. Who do I take? I guess I'll take the Browns. The Jets just had something of a fire sale. They got rid of 2 of their best defenders. Browns have a terrible offense, but the defense is good. So that'll at least stop the Jets. I could see this being like a 6-0 win. Honestly, this could be the ugliest football game ever put on television. Give me the Browns. Patriots at the Buccaneers. Give me the Pats. I'm going to roll with Drake May here. Baker Mayfield coming off of the bye makes me feel a little bit better. They might be able to just, kind of generate something. They didn't do much at the trade deadline. That's all right. Okay, I'll take the Patriots. I think they'll get the game. Cardinals at the Seahawks. Yeah, give me the Hawks. No question. Cardinals, they're rolling with Jacoby Brissett, which tells me everything I need to know about Kyler Murray. I think the Seahawks, they go out, they get Rashid Shaheed. That's going to be a boost. Again, similar to the Colts, they're going to feel that boost of that trade deadline. They bring him in, they get a buzz. I think the Seahawks are going to get the buzz. Rams at the 49ers. I think the Rams will get the revenge. Look, they lost that last game unexpectedly. I don't think they're going to lose this game. I think the 49ers, the injuries eventually have to have a say, okay? There's no way that this stupid 49ers team will just survive with, like, me out there. Like, stop, okay? No. Give me the Rams. And the Lions taking on the Commies. Yeah, you already know what I'm taking. I'm taking the Lions. Marcus Mariota is probably going to be starting this game unless, they find some new quarterback on the streets of Washington, D.C. Their defense is completely obliterated. Their offense, I think they've also got some injuries on there outside of Jaden Daniels. This feels like a get-right game for Detroit. They have not won or they have not lost back-to-back games since 2022, and I don't think it's going to start with the Commanders. So give me the Lions. Sunday Night Football, Steelers at the Chargers. You know what? Just to be nice to poor Seth, I'm going to take the Chargers. Aaron Rodgers is not him. Do not say he is him. Do not believe he is him. Do not listen to the lies and the propaganda that the Pittsburgh Steelers will tell you. He is not him. Now, granted, Justin Herbert might die in this game. Gonna take the Chargers. Gonna go with them. That's all I got. I don't have any more analysis. I just want to be nice to Seth, okay? Is that too much to ask? Eagles at the Packers for Monday Night Football. This feels like an Eagles win just because the Packers have been playing with fire. No Tucker Kraft. I just don't. I don't know. This Packer team, it feels like things are falling apart here. You lose to the Panthers at home. Now you're in red flag mode. I think the Eagles coming off of a bye. They just went out and they got Jalen Phillips at the trade deadline. I think they're going to feel a lot better about themselves. Again, similar to all the other teams that bought, they're going to have that post-trade deadline boost, that juice. Give me the Eagles. All right, rolling it out here. Raiders at the Broncos. I am taking the Broncos. Falcons, Colts taking the Colts. Saints, Panthers taking the Panthers. Giants, Bears. I'm taking the Bears. Jaguars, Texans. I'm taking the Texans. Bills, Dolphins. I'm taking the Bills. Ravens, Vikings. I'm taking the Vikings. Browns, Jets. Taking the Browns. Patriots, Buccaneers. I'm taking the Patriots. Cardinals, Seahawks. I am taking the Seahawks. Rams, 49ers. I am taking the Rams. Lions, Commanders. I am taking the Lions. Steelers, Chargers. I am taking the Chargers. Eagles, Packers. I am taking the Eagles. And those are your Week 10 NFL picks. All right, music, you can cease. I never actually said anything after I say the picks. All right. I'm here to say this is not a trap game whatsoever. How so? It seems to be certainly was a trap game. I mean, you're 10-point favorites, division rival, coming off of a bye. I don't know. That sounds like a trap game to me. Shout out to Jay Stow, I guess, because all he was doing was saying how stupid I was. Don't know why you're listening, but okay, that's fine. Anyway, JJ falls down to earth, taking the Ravens over the Vikings. Yeah, I don't know. I'm willing to ride with it until the wave subsides. I'm not one that goes against the wave. I'll ride it until it dies, at least when it comes to the picks. And that's why I'm never picking the Cardinals again. I've already decided this. I'm never picking the Cardinals again. And we know what's funny is that I would have loved to pick them over the Cowboys, and yet when I didn't because of my vow never to pick the Cardinals again, and then they end up winning. The jerks. Anyway, so that's our show. A little bit longer than normal, but we had a lot to talk about. So that's it. So a little bit of show notes. Look ahead for you. Sunday, we will be live for the Lions-Washington game. That game is a 4:25 start. So we'll be live at 4:15. Probably be able to catch the tail end of one of the 1 o'clock games, whatever one I get in my area. So be sure to come out for that. Hopefully the Lions get a bounce back win. We'll have some positive talk next week. I hate having to talk sadness and anger and angst. It's always the worst, but it's part of the fun, I suppose. But if you did enjoy, please like and hit the subscribe button. I do appreciate it. And I don't know if anybody's going to stay out for the Red Wings game tonight because apparently NHL says we don't want anybody watching our games. They're playing at 10 o'clock in Vegas, so it's understandable to some extent. But anyway, have a good rest of your night, everybody, and I will hopefully see you all this Sunday for the Lions Commies. See you later. Goodbye. See you later. Goodbye.